This conversation absolutely fascinates me because I realize there's a lot of people that recently have turned 18 and they probably never experienced the original internet that we grew up with. They probably never experienced the culture of artistic freedom that we grew up with stuff like Postal. Recently, I watched an old horror movie with my wife, and it's about a serial killer that dies, but he gets reincarnated into a snowman. And there's this scene with a woman in a bathtub, and he appears from the water and impales her with with his carrot and murders her. And I'm like, there is absolutely no way that they would create something like this today. And someone said, well, yeah, but like, it's very disturbing. And I'm like, well, it was a horror movie. That was the fucking point, to be disturbing. And the reason I'm pointing it out is it's important to analyze how the woke got into power in order to prevent such a thing from happening in the future. So let's listen a little bit to this interesting observation.
The left is now seems to be more open to discussing politics in general and I think it's since the election of Donald Trump. For a long time, it was don't engage, don't give them. If you engage with them, they'll
don't platform them.
Don't platform them.
Right.
You're going to give them credibility, and so I want to know your thoughts on that. Do you believe that there is a change, or do you think that this is kind of something that the left has always done, and that we're misrepresenting or
So I'll just give you my take on this, because as I mentioned, a lot of people don't understand the freedom that we used to have before identity politics was stuffed down our throats. And I think it's when Occupy Wall Street happened that identity politics actually became a major talking point, not just in the United States, but in Europe. And the way it happened was with third wave feminism. Like, all of a sudden, you have these extremists coming around from Tumblr and from the academia and from universities, and they have this very zealous ideology that takes advantage of the kindness and empathy of others. And what I mean by this, like, their ideology, first and foremost, was like, either you're with us 100% or you're against us. And if you're against us, we will dedicate our time and resources in order to ruin you financially, destroy your reputation, make absolutely sure that you're going to be silenced. And so they had this concept of no platform for bigots. Eventually, Antifa would turn it into no platform for fascists. The idea was that if you disagree with them, you're not worthy of debate. Like, if you don't answer correctly to, are trans women? Is Trump a fascist? Is America systemically racist? If you do not have the correct answers for these, like, all conversation would just end. You are not a person that they would engage with in a conversation, and instead they would dedicate all of their power and resources in order to tear you down. And so there was a huge push to gain control over businesses. And there were academic papers instructing students, instructing people on exactly how to do that. And one of the ways they would do it, like, I remember people were glorifying Mike Pence for refusing to meet with another woman unless his wife was present. And the reason people were glorifying Mike Pence for that is that there were numerous examples when CEOs would be approached by a lady, and then someone would photograph them, and then they would accuse the CEO for behaving inappropriately or something. And that was enough to get the CEO fired, and then the CEO would be replaced with someone that was more woke-oriented. The entire culture, like the entire press and TV shows and entertainment, were dominated by the fact that America lives in a rape culture, and that all men are rapists, and that if you defend someone that's accused, even if there's no evidence for the accusation, but the simple fact, if you're asking where the evidence is, that made you a rape apologist. Like, it's so fucking bizarre to know that that thing actually happened. Like, talking about it now is like talking about something that is so bizarre and so weird that, like, human beings would never act this way. But it was such a height of a moral panic that, again, it was insanely effective. Like, people that, you know, genuinely wanted to do something good, and they genuinely believe, oh, well, we're fighting for women's rights, or we're trying to improve the life of women, they would latch on to these ideologies that had nothing to do with women, but it was just to get the ideologues in power and to gain control and dominion over culture. And so, again, one of their most powerful weapons was the concept of no platform for bigots. And there was no conversation. And this is why I believe the woke won, but it's also why the woke lost. Because refusing to engage, refusing to consider that the opposition can even have anything worthwhile of saying, is why Kamala Harris genuinely didn't know how to approach the male demographic. Like, she had a plan on what to give for black people, she had a plan on what to give for Hispanics, and she had a plan on what to give for women. But when it comes to, like, what do you give straight white men, she had absolutely nothing, right? So, like, a lot of straight white men either didn't show up to vote or they voted for Donald Trump. And now the left is in a situation where they're realizing, okay, we gotta engage. We gotta start a dialogue. We gotta start a conversation, because the tactic of viewing politics as good versus evil, and we're the good guys, and everything else they do is evil, and the way that we push politics is by constantly insulting and humiliating our opponents, doesn't seem to work. Hillary Clinton calling her opponents a basket of deplorables doesn't seem to work. The gaming companies insulting their customers and calling them misogynists, racist, bigots doesn't seem to work. Bud Light calling the people boycotting them transphobic doesn't seem to work. And so they're realizing, all right, we need to change tactics. And the left also had the problem that up until now, they were supporting the establishment. So almost everything their content creators like Hassan or Vosh were saying was the same shit you could find on CNN. Like, there was nothing new or insightful. It's like, okay, you can just watch the news and you can see a guy in a suit surrounded by professionals doing literally the exact same shit that you're going to see later on the leftist content creators talk about it on Twitch. But the winds are changing, and we get to see, you know, like, to me, the Young Turks deciding to start talking with the right and engaging with the right is very telling. I don't care if they're doing it out of genuine reasons or not. I think Anna may be genuine, while Cenk is a lot more cynical, and I think, like, he's just viewing that the culture is shifting and he just wants to be on the winning side. But the reality of the situation is that I don't know where the conversations are going to go, simply because there's a lot of overlap between left-leaning populists and right-wing populists, especially when it comes to international foreign policy. Like, for example, the conflict between Israel and Hamas. Like, a lot of leftist populists and right-wing populists, and especially like the MAGA movement that agrees, it's like, okay, we don't want any foreign wars, no more American interference. They're going to find out that they have a lot in common on that issue with the populist left. And they're going to find out a lot of leftists that got banned from social media, who are very salty about it. It's like, why did you get banned? Oh, well, I criticized Israel, or I criticized Benjamin Netanyahu. And people from the right is like, yeah, censorship sucks, you know, and they're going to find common ground on that. And we're going to see what happens in the future. But that's my prediction for the next year. A lot of populist left and populist right are going to start talking with each other. And there may be disagreements, of course. I mean, I don't think, like, their leftist ideology is going to change overnight. But I'm thinking, like, you may start to find some compromise, like some form of content creators that are just going to be populist. They're not going to be left-leaning or right-wing populists. They're just going to be populist. And we also noticed that there's a crack in the MAGA movement. I expected it to happen. I didn't expect it so soon. But I'll make another video and talk about it. A lot of businessmen, it's not just Elon Musk, but like a lot of businessmen and CEOs, they jumped on the Trump train, they jumped on the MAGA train, without actually looking at what MAGA is, without actually knowing what they're signing up for. And the reason they got onto the MAGA train is because on the left, you had the talks of taxing unearned gains and more regulations and more taxes and more taxes. And so, like, a lot of business people were like, no, this is not good, right? And they jumped on the MAGA movement. But now the conversation on foreign workers' visas in tech is starting on Twitter. And Elon Musk is getting ratio to high heaven with that. And he's realizing that, well, actually, this is a core issue in the MAGA movement, which is America first. In other words, make more jobs for Americans. And at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter the conversation in itself, because obviously there's going to be a lot of disagreements moving forward. But it's how Twitter will react to this. Is it going to actually press the finger on the scale? Is it going to try to suppress these individuals from airing their concerns? Is he going to just allow people to ratio him constantly? Is he going to start banning accounts? So far, no account has been banned. But the question is, like, how long is the conversation going to last? Like, if the conversation keeps going for 2 weeks, then I wouldn't be surprised if he actually tries some little bit of algorithmic tinkering. But surely enough, it is a point of contention, which I think is going to escalate come next year. We'll see. Very interesting times ahead, to be honest. I do believe that a lot of things are going to change in the world once Trump takes office. Some of them for the better, some of them for the worse. Regardless, I'm excited. I'm excited to see what will happen next year. So let me know what you think. And as usual, I will see you in the comment section. Take care.